Hi everybody, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, one of the key things to doing before you do anything when you're going on a cruise is to absolutely pick the right cabin. Okay, now this is going to be very subjective because everybody has their own thing that they have to be aware of, right? That some people travel by themselves. Some people are older and need wheelchairs. Some people, are partiers. Some people want quiet. It all depends on what you're looking for. So I'm going to try and give you some 10 suggestions on what to look for in different situations. For instance, number one, if you're a person who gets severe motion sickness at any time and you're going on a cruise, well, where should you put your cabin? Should you be in the aft of the top deck? No. You want to be in a place that's midship on a lower deck because that's where the ship moves the least. Dead center. That's the pivot point of a cruise ship, where when you're on the end, you can go up and down much higher, where the middle will kind of stay there like that. Now it also can help if you book an inside or just an ocean view cabin, because many people start getting seasick when they actually look out at the ocean and can see it going like that, more than the actual motion of the cabin itself. And by closing off curtains or being on an inside cabin, you eliminate that visual, which can help keep your motion sickness at a lower level. Always be aware of where the elevators are, and that can go for whether you want to be near them or away from them. If you want to be as quiet as possible, you want to be further away from the elevators, though most cruise lines are pretty good. Most people don't hang around elevators anymore, but one of the good things is if you just want more quiet, just aim yourself to a location that's away from the elevators. However, if you're somebody who is in a walker or can't walk long distances, you want to be able to get to your cabin quickly, you want to book something closer to the elevators. It always pays to pay attention to a deck plan when you're booking the cruise and look at these different locations and decide what's best for you. Number three, I will put out there for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a partier or not, but avoid being near bars. Many cruise ships, like an Oasis class cruise ship, for instance, can have bars, not just on the lower, but on a middle deck or a deck slightly lower than the pool deck. They can have a party zone in there, and they actually have cabins running alongside. You may want to avoid those if you don't want to hear rock music coming through your walls at 2 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, you want to avoid being near a bar anywhere on a cruise ship. Keep your cabins as far away as possible. Number four, you may get a cheaper balcony, forward, upper floor. However, depending on where you are, if you're right close to the forward decks and everything, when you step out on your balcony, you may be looking directly into the crew who are in that area on the ship that sticks out, where they guide the ship, right? Where they're looking when they're docking, where they're keeping an eye on the sides of the ship. You can actually, I've been out there and it looks like I'm looking in a mirror sometimes. It feels that close that there's a crew member. I can tell what they're wearing. I can tell their facial expression, and they're sitting out there and I'm on my balcony. So if you don't want that kind of non-privacy, shall we say, yeah, avoid the upper forward decks because, yeah, it's just a thing. Another place you can often find a little bit cheaper cabins is the floor directly underneath the buffet and the pool deck, or the floor directly over the theater on a forward place, because the noise will seep through. You will hear the music up on the pool deck if it's a loud, like a carnival ship that plays louder music all day long. You will hear it through the floor. You will also hear them setting up the deck chairs, taking down the deck chairs. You won't so much hear people walking, but you will hear that scraping sound a lot. And if you're somebody who's sensitive to sound, you want to avoid being under the pool deck, buffet, or above the theaters. Another thing you want to be careful of is the cabin upgrade. They will ask you, do you want to be put down for a free upgrade if one becomes available? Now, people automatically think, oh, I'm in a balcony, which means they'll put me either in a mini suite or a suite, right? Not necessarily. What actually can be done is you go from the same balcony, but they have different categories, A, B, C, D, E. And you may be in an E, and now they'll put you in a D balcony. Trouble is that D balcony may be in a location that you don't want to be in. It could be under the pool deck. It could be over the theater. It could be beside the bar, beside the elevator. It could be anywhere on the ship. You don't get to choose. Another mistake people do is if you are in an accessible cabin and you booked an accessible cabin for that reason, if you put in for a free upgrade, they don't put you in another accessible cabin. They put you in another cabin, which means you lose that availability of the scooter being able to get inside, etc. And it can be much more inconvenient than what you had planned. So yeah, beware of the free cabin upgrade offer. Every time I book, I say, do not upgrade, because I choose the cabin of what I want to stay in and where I want to stay. Another thing to be aware of, many cruise ships these days have inside balconies. If you go on an Oasis class, you have a Central Park balcony overlooking Central Park. And then you have a boardwalk balcony overlooking the boardwalk area. Well, those can tend to be much noisier than an ocean view balcony. Why? Because there's people downstairs. They have music playing. There's sometimes celebrations going on. There's sometimes aqua shows going on. There's a merry-go-round on the boardwalk. Kids play there, kids zones. It can get a lot noisier there. Now, you do get the advantage of being able to open the window, but also it feels like an apartment building, because when you open your balcony, you're staring across at another balcony. Somebody is right there, like as if you lived in an apartment building close by to each other. So it can give you some fresh air, it can give you some light in your room, but it can be a lot noisier than an ocean view cabin. Now, if you're looking for the cheapest locations on a ship, that's all that matters. You don't get seasick, you don't really care. Forward and aft are often much cheaper than anywhere near midship. A lot of people choose midship because of seasickness, etc., closeness to everything. But if you're looking for cheaper cabins, then you also want to look forward and aft, as they're often much cheaper. Also, to go along with that note, if you're definitely looking for cheaper and larger, then you want to look at booking an older cruise ship, because the older cruise ships tended to have larger balconies and interiors, etc. Their cabins were just larger back then when they were building. Now they're more streamlined and trying to fit as many people on as possible, where the older cruise ships were looking at first for comfort and getting more people on, and so space was a premium, and that's what they were advertising. So if you want a larger cabin, you may want to look at some of the older cruise ships out there. And finally, as a tip number 10, if you're looking for a cabin at the cheapest price, you don't care where you are. You can be forward, you can be aft, you can be under the pool deck, you can be over the bars. I don't care. I just want to get on a ship. I want to do it as cheaply as possible. You want to look at a guarantee cabin. That means the cruise ship will place you in a cabin. You don't get to choose, they'll put it on. But there are some drawbacks. Number one, you don't get to choose the cabin. That's where it is. The benefit is they're often sometimes hundreds of dollars cheaper than the other cabins. And that's hundreds of dollars per person that you have in that cabin. So that's the real benefit of everything. It's probably the cheapest cabin you will get, but you have to keep an eye on it. You have to make sure that it's worth the price, because of all the other different situations that can happen, right? You know, seasickness, etc., noisy cabins. Will the savings of a few $100s for a worse cruise experience taint you on cruising from now on. But guaranteed cabins often are the ones you've heard about where the cruise ship is oversold. Well, guess who tends to not get those cabins? People who booked a guaranteed cabin. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And all of a sudden, 1 day or 2 days before your cruise, or even on your flight there, you'll get an email saying that there's no cabin available for you. Very rarely does it happen on the major cruise lines, but it has happened. And so it is a risk. I have booked a guaranteed cabin on one of my next upcoming cruises. It's the first one I've booked in years, and it's because I wanted that type of cabin, and it was the only way to book that type of cabin was a guaranteed. The rest were already chosen and sold out. So yeah, risky in a way, but fingers crossed that I get my cabin. But there you go. Those are some things to keep an eye out when you're choosing your cabin, because quite honestly, choosing the right cabin can be 50% of your cruise. If you choose a cabin that you absolutely hate and have a bad experience, that may ruin you for cruising for a long, long time, especially if you're a brand new cruiser. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Till next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.